So we'll start a third session of our international conference, which is called Business Session, Fast Cold Chain Market Success Factors and Logistical Aspects. Allow me to introduce the speakers. That is Temir Zholdasov, General Director, RF Agrotrans Company, Anton Vostrikov, Director of Development, Polarnaya Zvezda. Please wave your hands. Vostrikov is the second one. Alexei Yakubin, Head of Container Transport Development, Transport Service Directorate, Center for Corporate Transport Services, Russian Railways. It's a center of transportation services which, on behalf of RZD, interacts with all of the freight owners. Yulia Belikov, head Troika Fishing Company, the founder of fishplay.ru. Vadim Binakov, Operations Director, Grando. And Vasily Yemelyanko, chef, TV host, YouTube blogger, Horeca business representative. So this is the jolly team that we have today. I visited Ivan's masterclass yesterday. So my first question, yes, we will be discussing the following issues. The mechanism of increasing the efficiency of monitoring the temperature conditions throughout all of the stages. We are talking about the unified classification and the form of control over the temperature, the cross-docking importance, the prospects of direct railway service between China and Russia for perishables, trans-border operations when crossing international borders, and internet service for fish products. My first question is to Temir Zholdasov. We know that you have a fleet of autonomous refrigerator containers, about 500 or more. Please press the button. No, here. Yes. Yes, our company has 500 autonomous containers and 500 maritime refrigerator containers. You are an avid proponent of export-import operations. You're oriented toward exports and imports. When organizing shipments, what are the problems of monitoring the cold chain when crossing the borders at border crossings, and what ways out do you see and what proposals do you have for approval of this process? Mikhail, thank you very much. Colleagues, good afternoon. Before I start talking about the problems, I would like to indicate our position of principle concerning the unbroken cold chain. We fully support this project because we believe that this is the basis for a correct supply chain and delivery of high-quality product to the consumer. For us, for a company that effects multimodal shipments, the introduction of this cold chain is very important with our partners, Central Asia, CIS countries, China, and other countries. I will explain why. Refagrotrans has been shipping multimodally for many years. We have been developing direct service between China and Russia in fast trains. We send 2 export trains a month to China from Moscow. The time of delivery is about 17 to 20 days, and 2 trains from China to Moscow and Belarus, and the time of delivery is 20 to 25 days. Well, having unique equipment, we render railway services to Central Asia. And the question is, the uninterrupted work of refrigerators is not guaranteed without the unbroken cold chain. You said previously that technologically refrigerator shipments is a very complex project which demands correct actions when loading and unloading of containers, placing of freight in containers, and border crossing. I will briefly talk about some issues that we and our colleagues come across, not only in international logistics but also domestically. Loading through an unequipped bridge in the warehouses. Quite often in the summer, if it takes more than 3 hours and the temperature is above 30, that defrosts the shellfish and fish and so on. And as a result, the equipment worked correctly, but the freight does not meet the requirements because when the freight was placed in the container with defrost, then it froze and we get a poor condition. And the unbroken chain is not interrupted. And second issue is the placement of freight in container. Quite often the containers are loaded to the maximum, and the shippers believe that shipping air is loss of money, and the violation of these rules results in a blockage of air and may also result in a disruption of temperature conditions.
Then loading the cargo on the door without fastening it properly. For this purpose, we have been using special profiles on the doors to ensure the necessary airflow. There is a problem with temperature sensors, loggers, etc. for independent control of temperature conditions. It is necessary to correctly place the loggers, because we have seen cases when loggers were placed on the outer walls instead of inner walls. And as a result, the temperature inside may differ from the temperature outside. To ensure high-quality transportation, not only the shippers and cargo carriers should properly work, but also the cargo owners should be responsible. In our case, the delivery time is short enough. That's why even if there is some breach of conditions, we still do it within a short time and there is no adverse effect. The authorities have the right to open containers even if they don't have a proper infrastructure to ensure the integrity of the cargo. For this purpose, a special decision of the EAEU needs to be taken. Basically, our basic competitors are motor roads who also offer good service at pretty low costs. In our case, it is the speed and high quality of transportation. Besides that, we have advantages for dealing with Iran, Central Asian countries, and Turkey. That's all. Could you show us your cells? Actually, I forgot about the slides. I was so carried away with my presentation. Well, colleagues, since we are an hour late now, it was agreed that some of the speakers, after they take the floor, will stand up and leave the room because it does not fit into their personal time schedules. Thank you, colleagues. Today we have discussed how to improve container checking without opening them. But the problem is, even when the equipment for refrigeration is working, sometimes the entrance is blocked or the inner space is used to a maximum. That's why it should be taken into account. Now, Anton Vostrikov, a colleague of the previous speaker in the business, he is director for development of Polarная Zvezda company. What is your idea of the current status of with perishable goods transportation? And what needs to be done to make this transportation faster and more convenient for clients? Could you please switch on my presentation now? The presentation of the pole of the North Star, that is to say, Polarная Zvezda, the name of our company is North Star, translated into English. Well, when dealing with China, Russia's Far East, and other countries in the region, we engage in standard sea containers used by sea lines. For a long time, such containers were used by railroads. Those are containers that have independent power supply, and that's why we can send them both by sea and railway, as genset, etc. In this case, the technology is not greatly different from independent, from self-contained packages. And now, will you switch on my presentation, please? Well, probably could continue while the presentation is being loaded. Well, actually, I can start without having the presentation in front of you. Well, why are we discussing it? Our company has been engaging in refrigeration transportation since 2004. We deal only with standard containers. We have over 2,500 standard refrigerated containers designed in this country. They were made in Belarus, actually, and for automotive transportation we use gensets. We transport cargoes practically in the whole of the world, Africa, Latin America, and certainly Eurasia. What's the difference? What makes our containers different from self-contained packages? The volume of cargo is bigger. The capacity is high, up to 2.5 tons, and they can also be transported by sea lines, and this is quite useful. There was a time when we cooperated with Maersk quite actively. Now that Maersk is gone, we are cooperating with Russian shippers. And as far as sea transportation is concerned, certainly power supply is on board. In many cases, we send spare parts to the vessels for our containers. At terminals, certainly we need to provide power supply. And for railway, it is mostly energy containers. And for automotive transportation, it is just what we have had all along. I wanted to specifically describe our automotive transportation. Speaking about domestic services in Russia, it is, first of all, regular railway transportation in all the major cities in Russia by Transsib and outside of Transsib. Basically, I have positive impression of this kind of intermodal transportation. We had 75 cases that we transported. It took us the time required to deliver from Petropavlovsk-Kamchatsky to Murmansk was quite okay. Now we're planning more trips, and I hope that someday the route will be well proven. Currently, the results are quite good. Now, a few words about international logistics. Starting from last year, we have been sending cargo by our containers. Today, we have several regular routes. The first one is via Vladivostok and Nakhodka to the key ports in China and Southeast Asia. And one of the strongest, they have one of the strongest sea transportation routes in the East today. That's why even if we are short of our fleet, we can always use their containers to deliver cargoes by their containers without transshipment. The second route that is becoming stronger now due to freight costs is deep sea to St. Petersburg and Novorossiysk, and in the opposite direction. Also Egypt, Turkey, Jeddah. All of it ensures synergy with relevant sea lines. In each of the directions, there are several lines. For deep sea, the number of directions is lower, but it's possible then to send vessels more often. Another interesting destination is Brazil. There are straight services, direct services, but there are also routes via Riga. Unfortunately, there is a monopolist for deep sea operations, while we offer additional opportunities, and the cargoes can be delivered not only to Russia but also to Kazakhstan and Central Asia. And Riga, in fact, ensures operation as an international port. Well, I have told about our routes and where we'd like to operate in the future to facilitate food delivery. Thank you. Thank you. And now, colleagues, I'd like to ask the speakers, because Vasily Milyanenko has asked me to give him the floor now because he needs to leave our conference 3:45. Well, Vasily, you are a chef, you are a TV anchor, you are a YouTube blogger. So what is important for improving this area? And do you have any products in your kitchen that require storage in cold chain? As a matter of fact, as a blogger, I communicate not only with cooks but also with suppliers for HoReCa industry. In HoReCa, there are very few players who can afford having big warehouses. As a rule, all of them keep buying certain products throughout the year in small batches because probably they lack space. If they don't own the area where they operate, so they cannot afford buying additional products, because otherwise it would increase the costs. And now there are a few things I wanted to mention. Please keep in mind that I'm not a specialist in refrigeration equipment. I'm only its user. I know certain details that help me get the roots, to learn the ropes in my business. Can you hear me well enough? Well, yes, we can, but probably you should keep a little bit away from the microphone. Both at home and in restaurants, we use equipment that freezes food down to minus 20 degrees. When I was young, I noticed that when we left fish or meat in the freezer, then after a couple of months, the fish became oxidated, and that's why turned rusted. And I have a couple of examples. One of them is the supply of Japanese products from Japan. He used to bring them from Japan before the sanctions imposed, and now too. One of them is tuna blood. Not everybody is willing to buy this kind of premium product in the market. The question is how to properly store it. So on one occasion I went to his factory and asked him, now you take your products from one freezer, but when it comes to tuna stomach, you take it from another freezer. He said, because there the temperature is minus 60. He said that when I store tuna fish at minus 60, it always remains fresh. I discovered that 20 years ago, the Japanese took the trouble to investigate this technology to be able to store products at minus 60 degrees. And this is important because tuna fish is big. That's why at minus 20 only, it takes them too long to get frozen to their middle. While when the quantity is small, then the ice crystals are very small too. And besides, it is important that Jews should not leave meat or fish due to freezing. That's why, in addition to the speed of freezing, a very low temperature is important, because we say that lots of good things may die. If the temperature is -20 or -30, it takes 2 hours for insects to die. Or after 3 hours, it takes 1 hour. But if the temperature is below -60, it practically never has leeches. And besides that, at -60 degrees, the tuna fish is in an excellent condition even after 2 years of storage. While if you store fish at -20 after 2 years, you won't be able even to approach the freezer because of the smell. And because in addition to protein and other elements, though these elements make fish or meat rusted, Zhenya Zilberman stopped being a supplier of food, and now he has another business. And yesterday I sent him heaps of questions, and he provided his explanation. In his master class, when he was still a supplier 5 years ago, I didn't have anything with me. I asked him, just give me some products if it is a complete course.
Well, I chose Sargano in vacuum. Well, all the fish were laid evenly and vacuumed. We defrosted it. We conducted a master class after defrosting, and I asked him, Evgeny, well, that was April. That's Sargan you've caught in February, and it's in ideal shape. It's not defrosted. And he said, I have one fridge, which I expanded to in a warehouse, and I store all the fish at -60. So I take fresh fish from the Black Sea supplier, and I keep it at -60. This year, fish is 1 year old, and it's of ideal quality. So I got interested. I started studying this technology, and there is ultrasound freezing technology, which when the ultrasound, which is selected for certain projects, does not allow for crystals to form. And after defrosting, the side of the crystal is 0.03%, and the product is absolutely fresh. Certainly, we would like to plant this with the community. So think of it, if you can do that at -60, since Americans and the Japanese did that, why can't we do it? In order to preserve the whole chain. Of course you can freeze it at -20 and then keep it at -60, but to no avail. The idea is to freeze it at -60 and to ship it at -60. Then you'll get a product that you can keep for years, and it will be quite fresh. Vasily, thank you. You have a lot to do because according to Eurasian standard, the fish should be stored at a temperature not higher than -18. And Ross Holod-Prom at the previous session said that we cannot provide fridges that will have -60, but we will try to do that. A small remark. As for the articles about American technologies, the authors say that it's very difficult and labor consuming and money consuming to do that for a small number of devices. But if you have a big supplier, you can, for instance, make it a long-term project, a 10-year project, and then the cost of that equipment will be much smaller. It won't be like the situation with Zilberman, who cannot return his money. Well, you can invite all of the participants to a master class. Yes, we will have 3 master classes tomorrow from the leading chefs for each of the category of the products. There's not a single repeated ingredient, kinds of fish or technologies, and you will learn how to fry it, how to keep it, how to pickle it, and you will get a lot of interesting information. At the end of the room, there will be a masterclass for chefs. Thank you. Yulia Belikova, the founder of the Fishplane digital platform and the head of Troika Fishing Company. Yulia, thanks to your initiative, the wholesale trade in fish is digitalized. Is that a trend? And how does the digital help you to compensate for lack of spare room in the warehouses? I would like to find out whether there's refrigerator people here. Yes. It will be then interesting for you, and I invite you to join our platform. Can we use 40 seconds to, well, before 2023, fishing business was working using connections. It took a long time to fill out the forms and to find the warehouses. Some of the warehouses were overloaded, but there were quite a lot of warehouses that few people knew about. But a real revolution happened in 2023. Thanks to digitalization and automation, the problem of looking for warehouses was resolved. We represent digital platform Fishplace.ru. It implements the presidential decree, and it will forever change your experience of working in fishing industry. Free access to any warehouse from any point in the world. It's easy to sell and buy fish products without reservation in any region from any warehouse, domestically and for export in real time. Thanks to our service, the buyers and the sellers will become closer, and that will reduce logistics time and sales time. Electronic service for trade in fish products and its storage is convenient and simple. Join your partners at fishplace.ru. Increase the efficiency, scale up and develop your business in new conditions. Fishplace.ru. Digital revolution in fishing industry. Register now. Thank you very much for your attention. Very briefly, I will tell you about the platform. The idea came from a fish industry to fish industry. There was a big problem. It was very difficult to find the refrigerators. It took a long time, and you had to pull some strings to do that. And a lot of companies reserve room in refrigerators so that they can place the salmon when there's a lot of salmon in Vladivostok. So, of course, we managed to improve on that. We improved the logistics and increased the number of new refrigerators. But the problem was not finally resolved because the information was not available. And because of that, we use the experience of Booking.com and organize the same service for fish. So the owners of the fish can enter the site. Pavel will show how that happens. So we can look for a warehouse. So you want to find a warehouse. We enter the location, Moscow, the date when we are going to bring our fish. We enter, so it's hunchback salmon, the temperature that we are interested in, and the weight of the fish for storage. And here's the result. Now in the filters, we select if we want a warehouse accredited in a certain country, or if we need hand loading or automated loading, the inspection room, attestation, certification, and so on and so forth. So rather than spending 2 weeks, the fishing companies find a refrigerator in 3 clicks. They look at the description of the refrigerator and send an application for placing fish for storage. For instance, an application for storage. So we create an application fast enough. Everything happens quite fast. Yes, the platform is already ready. Over 60 warehouses joined us, and the fishing companies joined us. They already reserved place room at the warehouses through this service. While Pavel is filling out the application, I will comment on that. The idea was born in December. In February, I found a team, and we registered the company on the 30th of March, and now the product is in the market. We work very fast, and I would like to thank our programmers. Guys, do stand up. The people must know their heroes. They didn't sleep at night because they had a deadline. 2 Konstantins, Konstantin Tkachenko and Konstantin Vrachilov, and their task was to have the product ready by the fish catching season. Yes, probably it may seem that you have to spend time to fill out the application, but when the fish is in the warehouse, everything becomes much simpler and faster. And all of these parameters have to be filled out on paper anyway, and we send the scans of those documents to the warehouse. Now you can use an electronic signature. So the warehouse gets an application from a counterpart that they can check on and do due diligence, or whether the company really exists and it has a bill of lading and they really want to send the product to the warehouse. So this is how the placement is working. Now the fishing company, after it has stored its fish, when the warehouse has accepted it, then you go to the fish products and they select the amount for sales. They just enter, well, say 750 rubles per kilo. Now, we haven't downloaded the photos yet, but we can so pictures of the fish, the inspection report, the certificates, the vet certificate. So the buyer, well, here's the fish, it's added, okay. Now the buyer enters the main page and chooses, well, say it's the Primorsky region, he wants to buy Sima, and he writes 900 and find. So as a result, we have the hunchback salmon. Yes, the buyer looks at the product and then he enters the desirable amount for purchase and sends a request. Enters the price, and then the seller decides whether to sell or not. In conclusion of my presentation, I want to say that business processes with our platform are reduced from several days to several minutes for every participant. All of the companies are available to one another, and we are supported by the fishing community and by the warehousing community. And today I would like to thank the first companies that we talked to over the phone and who got interested and supported us as such leaders of the market. I would say that go in pace with time, and they are strategic partners, and we want to give them special sign, Yuka Granda. Despite the fact that we are in Vladivostok and they are in St. Petersburg, we hand in the goldfish to you, and so the minimal conditions are and the best conditions will always be for you. So Sereglaska terminal representative is another one for award, and Vladivostok fish port. Well, unfortunately we cannot hand it in here, but we will. Thank you very much. Thank you, Yulia. Very interesting, very. We hope that in the nearest future you will provide some new digital projects to us, combining, adding the search for rolling stock and for automobiles. This is on our plans. This is this next stage for development. Since we are talking about railroads, let's pass the floor to Alexei Yakubin, Head of Container Transport Development, Transport Service Directorate, Center for Corporate Transport Services, Russian Railways, RZD. Alexei, the main share of fish products, of seafoods, is shipped by railroads. What do the Russian railroads do in order to expedite the delivery of this very necessary, very much needed product to the center of Russia? Thank you, Mikhail. Good afternoon, esteemed ladies and gentlemen. Well, probably I will start by an aside. If you look back in the 90s, RZD thought very much about what was missing in its network, what's coming, what are the needs of freight senders and receivers. Well, that doesn't change. That the accuracy, the speed, the turnover of rolling stock, and we came up to the idea of a container train. Back in the 90s, there were single trains, but as of now, there's over 1,000 trains on the road every day, and going over 3,000 destinations. That improved the speed, the turnover, and the frequency of departure resulted in the fact that the clients in the Far East, where most of the fish is harvested, well, that's so. And for the rolling stock operators, the frequency allowed us to send fish to all the destinations existing in the railroad. And 2020 came when we came to the peak of delivery of fish. 18,000 tons were delivered which is 10% more than in 2021. And of course, that couldn't but happen with the operators of refrigerator containers. As we looked at it, there was a revolution, a small revolution in the perishables segment when ref containers were ahead of the ref railroad cars. You can see that in the slide, and that's a real change of the mode of delivery and a big change in the service. And that that affected the quality of the product when the product is not reloaded. It's always frozen and it's delivered to the end user as it was loaded into the containers. And that's a great advantage to all of us, for all of the consumers, because the distances in this country are long enough. And as we understand, the main directions or destinations are Moscow, Yekaterinburg, and Novosibirsk. And that's from 4,000 to 8,000 kilometers for the fish to travel. And if we step aside from the fish, meat goes back in container trains. So just imagine the volume of meat carried by a train which has 40 food containers, which travels through the country at a speed of 800 kilometers a day, or even 1,200 kilometers a day if the conditions for the throughput are favorable.
To load fish, we use mostly Russia's Far Eastern region. There are 8 fish stations operated by 12 companies there. We are quite satisfied with the results of our cooperation. If we look at the fleet that we have today to transport products, it is isothermal wagons, over 4,000 such wagons, plus thermal wagons, and most of cargoes are transported by containers. And the speed is from 120 kilometers per day. In Russia's Far East, there are 124 destinations to which cargoes are shipped. I mean, frozen fish products of good quality, because it is tested at all stages, including before loading onto railway wagons. Besides that, we have cargo expresses. In 2019, we improved it. We enhanced the design so that it became possible to attach them to container trains, which makes it possible for our clients to send smaller cargoes as attachments. And new services have been now developing for container transportation. And this is quite important because it makes it possible to ship such products without having to transship them on the way without using refrigerated equipment. 1,085 wagons were serviced over the past 8 months of this year. Of major importance is the infrastructure of railways. If we look at the railways in general terms, then the terminal makes it possible to handle up to 22 million TEUs a year. and some of the wagons are fitted with the sockets required for transportation. But also, there are several destinations such as Silatina, Aparatna, Elektrougli. There, their conditions are not inferior to products manufactured by international companies. And if we look at their payload and their service life, they're even superior to that of other Europe-based centers. That's why today we are able to handle over 2.5 million per year. That is to say, we are exactly ahead of all the European countries in terms of handling at the railway. If we look at the latest developments of recent months, amendments were made to the regulations which help choose the necessary speed and rolling stock. It is also possible to prepare time schedules for more than 124 destinations. There are also stations for perishables. We also provide for direct links between shippers and the carriers. We propose to do our best to make it possible for perishables to reach the consumers, and I believe all the parties concerned, all the people in this country are quite interested in it. Thank you very much, Alexei. I just wanted to draw the attention of those present in this room now that we can speak a lot about certain deficiencies there are at the railroad, but definitely we do receive the required information on the number of wagons, on the time when they were loaded. We know the quantity of rolling stock units, that is to say wagons, and the number of containers, which is not always the case with automotive transport. It would be impossible for you to find the number of automotive vehicles used across the Russian Federation. For 2 years now, jointly with the Russian Agricultural Supervisory Body, we have been trying to find a solution. If you have any suggestions, we are always willing to listen to them. And now I would give the floor to Vadim Minakov, who is in charge of not only refrigeration warehouses in Leningrad Oblast, but also has a fleet of refrigerated vehicles using cross-docking technology. They ensure the delivery to the end user. To make my presentation clearer to you and how we have implemented what I am going to tell you about, I'll say a few words now about our company for you to understand what our assets are like. Our Grando Limited company today is the largest company which ensures cargo storage under different temperature conditions. It includes not only fish, but also meat, etc. Everything that needs to be stored, chilled, or refrigerated. A special feature, our special advantage is that we are not subjected to the risks of any developers or other parties. Besides that, we design our construction projects using our own facilities, and then we avoid various risks, for instance, related to having non-refrigerated areas near the place of unloading. Besides that, we provide for proper transportation within cities, and possibly the presentation I'm using is not quite the right one. I had a special slide about temperature logistics. Our unique advantage is that it has combined temperature conditions to improve transportation between Moscow and St. Petersburg at a rate which is unavailable in this case. In most cases, it is once every 2 or 3 days, but in our case, our vehicles are sent between the cities every 6 hours. In certain cases, the products are to reach the customers at midday, in other cases at 6 p.m., etc. So we have agreed with the customer that they deliver the cargo to our warehouse, and then at a certain time they are to be shipped to the destination. To control cold chain, we have special sensors that are fully synchronized with all the vessels. There are routers that we use and control systems, and then signals are sent to dispatchers, and if there is a mistake or alarm, they manage to remove the problem in a very short time. And speaking about temperatures, I should also say that now we are almost ready to provide complete details to our customers. Each one of our customers will be able to visit online every warehouse we have to locate their cargo. However, there is a problem here. When we are the only participant of this supply chain, we are ready for it. But if there is any other party, for example, a line that is transporting imported products, or if there is a settlement center, etc., which delivers products directly to supermarkets, then it doesn't work quite well. It all depends on the type of chain users. There is a lack of cost-effective equipment in the market. If the equipment that you have is good, it's easy, and is owned by your company, it's easy. But if you rent equipment, then it is not so easy. And Yulia, who represented a platform today, probably we need to have a platform where every participant could display every opportunities they offer. And it is also important that there should be requests and demand from our consumers, because currently what we've been offering to the market is based mostly on our social responsibility. But if there is no need for it from the customer, then it's difficult for us to go on like this. Everything that our customers care for is whether we have dispatched the products and that's it. To find a solution to these problems, the key factor, as far as I understand it, is to be ready with particular platforms to be able to ensure the transparency of this chain, or a certain status should be assigned to them, or we could act as agricultural producers do, that is to say, they are to adhere to a charter that they have. To become a member of the charter, you need to prove that you share the guidelines of the charter and ready to abide by them. That's all. Thank you, Vadim. I was particularly impressed at your final statement about the charter. We have now prepared a draft law on cold chains, and I included safe regulatory aspects in the draft law, and I believe that we share the same opinion with you, that is to say, the feeling of responsibility, even though it is difficult for Russian people. At least we should really aspire for this. I believe we have had a very interesting session, dear colleagues. Let's have a break now, and then at 4:20 p.m. I expect you'll come back for our final session.